Only hot girls listen to IB Advices and Experiences podcast in their free time. So whoever's listening, warm and sparkly welcome or welcome back to the IB Goss podcast. An IB podcast that will add up 250 aura points to your guaranteed 45 points at the end of the DP2 graduation.
Let's go. You know what? No, we are not gambling. We're done gambling, dude. This is it.
Hi, welcome back. And this is gonna be first and I think the last time you hear me talk about math online. This is my first time ever feeling confident enough to actually talk about it, because even though lots of people have been saying to me that you're good at math, you're fine with it. In my NYP years, I've been in extended math the whole time. I still do not feel confident enough to be saying that I'm a math person and that I understand it. There is lots of struggle that goes into this subject. And the main reason I'm brave enough to talk about this right now is because I aced my math exam recently. And when I say I aced, I don't mean that I got 100 out of 100. I'm not saying that in DP I got a 7 out of 7. But I had my own expectations and I outdid them so much, because I still keep encountering the fact that in DP it's 7 points as a maximum point, right? In NYP it would have been an 8 a maximum. So the fact that I was expecting a 4, in the worst case scenario, a 3 and a 5, so the average still stays 4. I was hoping for double 4 because it was paper 1 and paper 2, so we did like 2 papers, so there's gonna be 2 grades. I expected a 4 as my minimum, and I was hoping that the entire year I will be able to hold on onto this 4 like a little child holding onto their lollipop, because that was my goal, because I knew that I wouldn't be able to go over that, because this 4 would have been a 5 in MIP 5. And at MIP 5, my stable grade was a 5. So I was like, just keep doing what you were doing, Amelia. Just keep holding up. I got a 5. And my face when I got a 5 was not comparable to, like, I swear, orgasm doesn't feel as good as this 5 felt, because you saying me that I got a 6 in MIP system. So this would have been a double 6 in MIP 5, where I was not managing to get anything below 5 in MIP 5. Just in general, I was really happy, and this gave me the courage and confidence and the feel like I actually know what I'm doing to talk to you today about how I flip and do it, and how I'm hoping to do it next time, and what I want to improve about it. Because there's really things that I think I could have done better that I knew about before I started prepping for this unit test, but for some reason I tried to ignore it or I forgot about it. Anyways, I just want to make sure you have everything to outdo your own expectations on how well you're gonna do on your math test. Story time, and hopefully time for you guys to relate, because I find that no matter what IB school I'm going to, like if it's DP or MIP, those second language classes, so is it German, Italian, Spanish, Dutch for you, doesn't matter, you always get the kind of teacher who likes to yap like a lot. And she gives you life advice, she gives you DP advice, she gives you advice on your boyfriend's situationship, she gives you advice on everything, she or he, sorry, didn't mean to be biased. Anyways, that's how I got my current biggest advice for myself for math, because she was talking us through, so how in DP, it's like you have these big groups of grades, they divide into subgroups. So 4 and 5, these 2 grades, they go together. That's the same level, like, if you're willing. While 6 and 7, it's another level. And basically, because 4 and 5, they're in the same level, even though 1 is a 4, 1 is a 5, 5 is obviously better than a 4, it's in the same level. So what she said that struck me like a moving train was the fact that why would you work so hard to get from a 4 to a 5 in your math if you could spend this time instead working to get your higher priority subject. For example, if you're going to study medicine, why wouldn't you spend this same time studying on biology to get your grades from biology from 6 to 7? Because this is a higher priority. And this makes so much sense because everybody's saying you gotta prioritize. And in my case, in my career path, where I don't really benefit from getting a 7 out of 7 in math, like it wouldn't matter if I would get a 7 out of 7 in math or a 5 or a 4 out of 7 in math. Because my career isn't that math heavy. Obviously, it depends on what your career is. Anyways, this advice was so valuable to me. I was so shocked. I was so happy when she said it because I just heard the clock ticking in my brain. I just knew that everything was starting to make sense because seriously, I feel like over the past 2 years, I've been crabbing so much about math. I've been obviously realizing that I'm working harder instead of working smarter. And when I was trying to work smarter, I still worked harder. And bear with me because I know how this sounds because I was hoping to get a 4 and I got a 5. And now I'm making a big deal of it, even though right now I'm telling you guys that's not what the game is about. But my main point is that I was actually aiming for a 4 and I studied really, really little compared to how I studied in my MIP years before, but I got the result better than the result I got in MIP. Does this make sense? Moving on. Figure out where math stands for you. If it's a high priority, maybe this episode is not for you. If it's not, then maybe think of where you're falling right now. Really think where math stands for you because if you're just a perfectionist, really drop it. Because in DP, I think that's what I'm really starting to understand right now. There is no such thing as perfection, and obviously I want my grades to look 90 out of 90, 20 out of 20, 7 out of 7. I kind of realized that that's not really healthy for me to be looking into these kind of results, and settling for good enough is actually good enough. So basically, where the math stands for you. So if it's a 6 and you really want to get a 7, but in order to get a 7, you really have to work 4 hours a day, just purely on math. Obviously, I'm really over-exaggerating this, but just think about it if it's gonna worth it. If this perfectionist 7 out of 7 would be worth it, if at the end of the day, university is gonna be looking, for example, at your visual arts grades. I know, really dramatic, but that's the only way you can see the difference because same with 4 and a 5 because 4 is a really good result. It's a really good result. You got a 4. Obviously, you could cram up a little bit to get this 5, but at the end of the day, they are still in one level. Luckily, the next point is pretty short, so that's a good part. The bad part is it's really cliche, and I know you've heard lots of people in your life say it to you, and you're probably not gonna like me for saying it to you again and for repeating every other person in your life who seems to be knowing something that you don't, because no way an advice like practice more, just do more, solve more, makes sense. Because if you've already been practicing and it clearly doesn't work out, then maybe it's not a good advice. But hear me out. I think math, especially when it comes to you with a lot of effort and you have to put a lot of time into it, a really good thing to do is to step back and see the entire picture from afar. And I think art people can really relate to this because when you're working on the entire piece and you're so close to the canvas and you can't really see how far you are into the progress, how close are you to be done, how good is the outcome so far. And the main advice you got from art teachers at this point is to be like, girl, go take a break, sit back, and just look at what you have as a whole. Just stand 1 meter away from the painting and look, and you will see your mistakes. Because when you're so up close, your perspective changes. That's how crucial it is. And when you step back, you finally notice that when you were sitting and you were so crumbed up over the paper, your spine was so bended towards, left side, that your vase is also bended to the left side. And you step back and you realize, oh my gosh, how did I do that? That's so insane. Gotta go and redo that. The same thing can be applied literally to math. Because it's really good when the teacher is giving you like a 15-minute introduction to the new unit and being like, guys, trigonometry, studying triangles, keep up with me. And then you just dive into topic by topic. So in our case, it was sequences. So we dived into pattern, then into sigmas, then into geometric arithmetic sequences. And throughout this whole time, we were really working up close to the entire unit, because we never returned to the whole concept of sequences. Rather, we broke it down into the smaller topics and we worked separately on those, which I'm not saying is bad, because that's a really organized way to approach a big task. But again, you need time to step back and see how you're doing. That's why I think mind maps, I don't even know how I came up with that. I just felt like I was so confused in the beginning of this unit. I just needed a sit back and to look at what I have so far. Like, what knowledge have we covered? What have we covered so far in general? And I remember that I sat down with this DP2 girly. If she's listening, hi! And we really covered what in class we covered so far. And I made this really messy mind map of what means what, of all of my questions that I had. I asked her and noted them down. And when we were done, I think it was one of the most productive sessions we had with this girl, because I felt so under control. I felt like everything is going somewhere. I knew that in this area, for example, I had problems with calculation, so I really needed to work on my calculator skills. In this area, I was really confusing the formula values, so I really needed to dive into what different numbers, letters in the formula mean. And even though I still saw all of my flaws, I knew that overall the whole picture is there, and at least now I have specific questions to concentrate on, and I can't even say how much that helped. There literally would be no way of me overworking and overstudying, because I stepped back and I saw the points where my mistakes were. And I knew that if I'm gonna sit down and study right now, I knew where I would need to study and to prioritize my attention at. Finally, moving on to the mistakes I did, and I noticed that I've been talking about active recall a lot on this podcast, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are following up with what I'm saying. So a quick definition from ChatGPT is active recall is a static method where you quiz yourself to remember information instead of just rereading it. And some good example of active recall would have been flashcards, blurting, Feynman's technique. Examples of the opposite of active recall, so passing learning, would have been rereading your notes, rewriting your notes, highlighting important things in your textbooks without necessarily doing anything with this information. I have a big advice on how to implement active recall in math, because math is not history. You cannot do flashcards or mind maps about it. You have to actually work and practice more. And I know that it sounds annoying, but there is a way to implement active recall into your practice. One of the biggest things you can implement is the way you are approaching tasks that you do not know how to do. Go to your answers. Look at the answers and purely, with the innocence of a child, try to understand how your math teacher got this answer. If it's already published with a worked solution, or if you have to ask your mom, or if you have to ask ChatGPT, just figure out what they did in order to get to final result. If you just look at the final solution and be like, yeah, I'm just gonna copy that, does not work. Or if you just copy these steps, yeah, fine, but not good enough. You're gonna go through the work solutions, you're gonna try your best to understand it, and then put the solutions aside, block them from your vision view, and try to solve the same problem without looking at the answers or the work solution. Try to recall as much as you remember about the procedure of approaching such task. And if you're stuck somewhere, go check your answers again, then put them aside and start over until you get that problem done. And I think that's really a great advice. I heard it on YouTube from this amazing girl. I'm gonna mention her in the description of this episode. Anyways, that's literally what you have to do. And I know that it's time consuming, and this doesn't necessarily is helpful in the classroom where you're feeling really stressed and the pace with which you're going is really fast. But simply put a star, a pretty star, or a heart next to the exercise where you struggled. Write down all the steps that your teacher wrote, write down the answer, then get home. if you feel like this task was important enough and you should prioritize it, and you do not feel confident enough about it, and you feel like you should do it, then follow this active recall thingy method. And I know you'll feel bad about yourself, because you cannot feel bad after doing active recall. I swear that's the most amazing thing, because after doing the active recall, you actually feel like you understood. And that is amazing. That is purest form of love. That's what it is. I hope that was helpful. I'm feeling really productive talking to you guys, so I might as well record another one episode, but hopefully by the time this one comes out, something is going to be already prepping for you so you don't feel bored. And I hope this was helpful again. I hope you are doing great in your DP IB journey, and see you next one. Bye!